Hey guys, this is Bryan Dilionnis, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show.
Hello, John.
I am joined by, I would like to say, virtuoso, technical, extreme guitarist, Bryan Dilionnis. Did I say that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Now
very,
we met,
very kind.
No problem, man. We met at NAMM, and you know, you introduced me to this face melting music you make, man, which I'm just so impressed by since I've been listening to you since we first met. So first off, how are you today? What you been doing?
Oh, we've been great. Actually, we've been pumping out a lot of material from NAMM. We fell a little behind because the editor was working on all the cool edits for and all the cool ideas that we had. But it's been awesome. It's been amazing. We made a lot of new friends this year. Obviously, we connected at NAMM. Yeah. So it's been awesome. It's been great all around.
And how was NAMM for you? Because obviously it was the first time for me. It's not your first time. You know, I've seen a lot of social media posts, and you know, as a guitarist and of your standard, how important is that show to you?
It's quite important. For me, basically, is the time of year that I get to connect with a lot of industry friends, because it's like a standard that we all meet at NAMM during the winter time. Mm-hmm. So and a lot of other friends that they tour year long, and that's when we catch up and we get to see each other. And obviously to meet with different companies at the same time, because a lot of the times they're out of the country. So that's when we get to actually go more in depth and talk more in person in the direction that they want to head. Sure. With new content, and also I get to express my ideas a little better, because not always is good, explaining your crazy ideas over an email. So I can actually, because I don't know, a lot of people are very visual and they need like a visual representation of what you actually want. And NAMM is also a great place to try new things, especially in performances and showcasing guitars or new products. In general. And when you actually get to play live, they actually get to see people's impression, of course, on the idea that they might not be completely sold on in the beginning, but they see the response, and then that's a great place to start. So
of course, I get that. Awesome. It was great for us as well. We loved it. Now let's get into the music, man. Tell me about you. You know, you're an incredible guitarist. Tell us about your music. You know, how that started for you, where you are now. You know, just go back in time a little bit. Just give us a little bit of history.
Oh yeah. All right. So my story is a bit crazy.
Love crazy.
So I'm originally from Puerto Rico, so Carolina, Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. That place is the birthplace of reggaeton music. As you can see. So, and I grew up around a lot of reggaeton artists growing up. And basically that was my upbringing. So coming from a place where is like 100% led by reggaeton music and that influenced by that culture, I will always have a passion. I always had a passion for metal music.
Right.
So, and all of my friends are in that industry. So I have a lot of friends, and not too many friends are in the metal industry from Puerto Rico. So, but growing up with them and having that different flavor, it's like I always got along with a lot of people in that in that genre, and I used to play for them too, because before doing metal full time, I also was musician for a lot of pop artists from Puerto Rico too.
Okay, and
that's how I got my networking when I started. So I use my guitar skills to put it lightly. So I use that to my advantage, and diversifying and playing with other people. I went to college in Puerto Rico. And then we started in the early 2000s, a metal scene in Carolina, Puerto Rico, where you couldn't see metal bands around. So, and then we started meeting new people, playing in their garages, and I actually had a video on YouTube explaining a little more in depth. It's in Spanish though, but there's subtitles in it, where how we started the metal scene in that area in Puerto Rico. and there was a metal scene, but it wasn't close to us. It was more like half an hour away from where I used to live,
Yeah.
and it was different. But I wanted more modern metal, and I had this vision of creating like a different scene and creating new opportunities and playing at different places because metal was very marginalized in Puerto Rico.
Mm.
So there weren't a lot of venues that would allow heavy core bands into their
Right.
venues.
Yeah.
And actually, people did get aggressive, moshing, and the moshing back in the day was very aggressive.
Yeah.
So I started playing in the local hardcore scene, and I got, my name in the circuit and started playing a lot. My first band was hardcore, and it started evolving from there. And I was always trying to keep a healthy balance between um, being educated musically,
Right.
classically trained,
Yeah.
and also having the streets, the music from the streets in me, and
Yeah.
having that balance because I know that you can get carried away from all the studies and well, that's great. Actually, I come from a background where let's get people through the door and let's do things DIY and let's do some touring and
Yeah.
a connection directly to the people and not so much tied up to an industry where you get a schedule and you get a manager to do things for you.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very DIY background and yeah, and after that I decided to move to the States. In the first place was
How easy
Pencil.
was that for you? Did you have a connection here in the States or?
Oh yeah, so my singer from my band, Astonishing, and he moved to Pennsylvania first, and the band was already established in Puerto Rico,
Yeah.
and we were pretty popular, so we were doing great shows, and then it was time for us to move to the States. So, and in that process, a lot of the other guys, we were 5 members, a lot of the other guys decided that, hey, I don't think I want to do this full time. So they weren't so sure about pursuing music full time. And I was always like down to do whatever it takes, even if it meant being homeless, but I get to play music,
Of course.
So I was ready to risk it all. All my family was in Puerto Rico, so I was always like ready. So a lot of them they stayed for their girlfriends or for work or whatever. And to me, all those things were temporary, and um, I guess delusion was a big part of the jump
Yeah.
because I had this crazy idea and I didn't know how to get there, but I know I was gonna do it the right way. So it's like
Sure.
I don't care. So I
Sure.
decided to move in 2012, and I moved to Pennsylvania in 2012, and basically my bag, like 2 guitars and dreams, honestly,
Yeah.
and I had a few connections, but but I also had like a long way to go for me to build a name and a reputation for myself back
Sure.
then.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
and I also wanted to do things like not thanks to anybody else. I wanted to prove that I could, you know, uh, carve my path
Of
in the
course.
industry on my own. So, but yeah, that's the big, like the long story short of
Yeah.
my story.
So, how did you get to where you are now from there, from that moment of getting to the States? Where did you get to? Because obviously you moved to be in a band, right? And now
Mm-hmm.
it's not a project because you tour. So, how did your brand become music as it on
Uh,
its own?
all right. So, okay. So the way the industry worked in Puerto Rico, it was a culture shock for me because I thought things in the U.S. were gonna be a lot different.
Mm.
In Puerto Rico, I started playing when I was 15 years old, and I achieved a great level of success back then in a short amount of time.
Mm.
So, at certain to a certain degree, I thought it was going to be super easy to just move to the States, have your chops ready and just be ready and be very, you know,
Mm.
just in general, like ethical,
Yeah.
and things are gonna go well. So, and I was clearly wrong at the beginning. Things did go well at some point, but
Hmm.
I I I experienced like a lot of lows in the beginning because
Sure.
I wasn't understanding how the industry used to work here.
Mm. Mm.
And the first problem that I encountered was that back then we weren't I didn't grow up having a camera to my face all the time.
Mm.
So we weren't used to social, we didn't have social media back
Of
then.
course.
So I started tracking on cassette tapes, old school way, and
Mm.
recording ideas and actually going to a studio and waiting for a producer to mix and master all the projects. And,
Mm.
you know, and I started getting frustrated because like producers they didn't meet deadlines and they weren't pushing the things as far as I wanted to push them. So that's another story on why I became a producer myself.
Yeah.
But to keep elaborating on what I was talking about, the culture shock was different because Puerto Rico was fast paced environment, like
Mm.
incredibly fast paced, and the scene was always like on fire. And then coming to the States and not having a portfolio where you don't have videos, you don't have a lot of albums or a lot of singles on under your name or your band's name,
Yeah.
that clearly uh, put a stop on the progress that I thought I was gonna have
Hmm.
back then. So and then it's like, oh, we need media content. It's like, oh, we need social media. And it's like, oh, okay, so we need to get better at social media because playing guitar in your bedroom is not good enough anymore.
Mm.
You know, so just trying to be great at your instrument wasn't gonna cut it in the industry.
Okay.
And people didn't care around this area, New York, Jersey scene. They didn't care if you could play great or not. It's like, how many people do you know around here? And if you couldn't if you didn't know people, you weren't gonna get people through the door. So
Sure.
promoters are not gonna want to book you if they
Get
don't
it.
know who you are. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how great you were in Puerto Rico or how many people you got in Puerto Rico. This is Jersey. This is
Yeah.
Philly.
Yeah.
So you need to start building a reputation here. So I started from zero. And I'm telling you, like, I had to start from zero around here and earn the respect of all the people around here. It was tough.
I can
And
believe it.
people from South Jersey, especially, they made it tough for us. But it's like I love the process though. I don't criticize it because it's a way that they can weed out the weak around here.
Hmm.
So if you're in it for just the the great shows or the parties or whatever, you're in it for the wrong reason. It's like you have to love the scene first, and
Mm.
they're gonna make sure that you have a passion for this before they even open the doors for you.
Of course. Of course.
So yeah, I had to ride a lot of waves around here
For sure.
and wait for my time basically, you know, because it's like, oh, you just move around here, you're not gonna get things easily, you
So your
know.
so your time comes, right? I mean, you've got an amazing the Violent Horror System VHS series. You know, what's all that about? It's a series of concept albums. Was that how long was that been going on for? That series?
So it started because I started writing for a lot of bands. So my name got out, and I started doing ghost writing for a lot of bands that were actually signed.
Okay.
So they were coming on to me to get some riffs and like, hey, ideas. Can you help me arrange these few songs that I have? I don't know how to finish them.
Yeah.
We have a few ideas, and we're looking for an outside source to tell us what's gonna happen. So I wasn't looking for that, but it kind of happened when I started posting online, and I started sharing my music just like that. And then a lot of people reach out to me, and then I became such a like an advisor for some people to write
Yeah.
because it, people knew that I didn't have writer's block or that I could write albums and a lot of music and I could produce a lot in a short amount of time. And a lot of bands were having internal problems even with their labels, and they
Mm.
needed someone to help them write a good album so sales can go up, or like if they were having like creative differences between the band members, then they started considering me to like pitch in like,
Yeah.
hey, I think you guys, I would take a look at their catalog, and it's like, okay, so this was successful for you and this is clearly not working. I think you should not do this,
Hmm.
not do that, and let's move in this direction.
Yeah.
And I think you guys should do this and that. So, and then from that, I wrote hundreds and hundreds of songs. Some of them people actually end up using, and a lot of them were in my hard drive.
Yeah.
So I started working on, like it's like, oh, I haven't been working on myself. Like it's like I I should do an album with all of these songs, and then maybe a series of albums. So that's why Violent Horror System started, because I had so much material that I didn't want to that material
Cool.
to go to waste.
Sure. Sure.
But yeah, that's how it started, and then it became its own thing, and I started adding a lot of different elements to it to make it different from what people would normally hear in tech death or
Yeah.
deathcore.
Sure. So, but your brand is your band is you, isn't it? Who else is a part of you? Do you have anyone
Oh,
else, or is it all yourself?
okay. So I do have a band that was originally from Puerto Rico. The name of the band is An Astonishing End.
Uh-huh.
That's a band, but the band itself, it has more commercial roots.
Right.
So we do have a lot of clean singing, and it's metalcore.
Right.
But since I've been working with independently and been doing this full time with companies and all of that, I started showcasing my music through video reviews and showcasing products.
Yeah.
So that's how it got like a lot of attention that way. Also, um, I never actually planned for me to become a solo artist. It
Right.
wasn't on my bingo cards.
Right.
It all started. It all started because uh, we were having a lot of problems like keeping a steady lineup in the band. A
Always.
lot of people come with such an enthusiasm in the first week of coming into the band, and then they fall off the wagon. And and I'm in it for the long run. People don't understand the commitment that takes to be in a band full time
Mm.
and to be touring, and
Of
sometimes it's
course.
brutal for people. And it got to a point where it's like, okay, so I'm doing videos and I'm doing YouTube things and I'm working with a lot of different
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah.
And so it took its own turn at that point, on one of those lows where we barely had any members left and the band had to be put in a hiatus for a year or a
Yeah.
few months.
Mhm.
And then it solidified my position, but it wasn't planned like that.
Sure. Because
um
go on, carry on, mate. Go on.
mhm. Oh, no, I was gonna say, like, in my project is just me, that I do everything
Yeah.
musically.
Yeah.
And I have like hire musicians to go
Session
for it.
guys.
Session guys, yeah.
And what about obviously? What would you say your split, your percentage of your catalog is instrumental to with vocals? Was it 70-30 less?
Oh, it's 50-50, because
Yeah.
basically I released the albums twice. So every
Right.
album has an instrumental version.
Right. Okay.
But
Why
I
is
do
that?
have
Why is it because you couldn't find the right vocalist, or you want it to be enjoyed for its pure music?
yeah, some people, okay, so I started it's crazy because I started doing instrumental. I do have instrumental singles, and I started doing instrumental singles at the beginning. And then I was getting a lot of people telling me, "Oh, you should have vocals to this."
Mm.
And it's like, oh, okay, so people won't need vocals. Okay. And then it's like, okay, so we're going to give you vocals, because a lot of the music that I was writing was intended for bands with vocals.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'll give you a vocalist. And then after having a vocalist, then people started listening to that as if my name was a band. And they started adding the songs to playlists as a band. And I say, okay, so people will listen to this because it has vocals, so it feels complete to them.
Yeah, yeah,
and it helped spread the word a lot faster because you can listen to it like any other band.
of course.
So it was just me doing all the music and the production of it, and I did the first album with a vocalist that was a session guy of mine that he used to do demos so I can show other people what I wanted. So it's
Right.
like, oh, I have like a mock up of this song and you should sing it like this and that.
Yeah.
And you should take a break on this part. So I was using that guy for that because I don't sing at all.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I moved on to with a different vocalist that's my main guy that from the second album forward has been the same guy that we do sessions with.
Yeah.
And he's my studio musician. He doesn't want to be his face. He doesn't want to show his face at all in the social media. So he
Right.
just a studio guy. We're not keeping the spotlight off of him or anything. He just doesn't want the attention.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's just he's cool with just being a studio guy. He's a creative guy. That's the guy that I've been working with
Sure.
all these years.
So being obviously, do you like being your like the solo warrior kind of attitude, producing yourself alone, a lot of alone time, especially in a studio, or do you miss the camaraderie of that kind of like band element?
If I tell you I miss the camaraderie, I'll be lying. Because we used to treat the band since always. We used to have a brotherhood.
Yeah.
Culturally in Puerto Rico, we have this thing that the only way out is death, basically.
Right.
When you start doing something, it doesn't matter how ugly things get, but it's like it's a marriage that it can't be broken ever. And it doesn't matter if the wheels fall off, we're gonna stick together. And a lot of people, I feel that they lost that or they pretended they had that at some point. And that's very instilled in me. And I still have very vividly in my head that a lot of the times where we wanted to do things collectively, it never got us anywhere.
Sure. I understand.
So, and I can only say that the only writer that I was able to work with is was my other guitarist. We're still great friends till this day. But he basically got fed up with all the industry BS. And he's like, I'm just not gonna do this, but we're still brothers. Sometimes we do some little projects here and there, but he's not as active anymore.
Sure.
We started doing this thing as producers, and it's like we're gonna do this like producing and whatever. But I guess the crown for some reason I had to wear it now. So it's like I have to keep going, and I feel that a lot of people get like how can I say that it's like they get bored working alone, or they can't find inspiration working alone. But I work on my best when I'm on my own.
Yeah.
Honestly. So it's like I'm good working on my own. I'm very productive. I am very strict with my with how I do things. Sometimes for other people can be annoying.
Yeah.
But I have a very particular way of how I like to do things. And if I'm telling you this is gonna get done today, it's gonna get done today.
You like it, yeah.
Release, yeah, exactly. And if I don't have to sleep for 48 hours, but the project is complete, trust me, it'll be complete.
That's good.
And
good attitude.
Yeah, so I have a very strong ethical character to how I do things.
Nice.
So I love working on my own because of that, and I don't like sending emails and telling people, "Hey, I'm sorry, this is not ready because our bass player do this or other guitarists." I don't like like waiting for people or having to worry about any of that. Honestly.
I get it. So, I mean, you just released a new track, Dear John, right? Great track. Now, how do you approach, in a nutshell, how do you approach writing and recording on your own? Is it something that's going on all the time? Do you forever have riffs in your head? Do you have to hum things into your iPhone or whatever phone you have, do you how do you not how do you curtail the creative, is it because you're obviously extremely creative, but how do you kind of like contain it to a level that you can control?
Um, okay, so it comes in waves sometimes. I have different approaches to how I like to keep things organized. Sometimes I'm driving and an
Mm.
idea comes up, and then I record it on my phone and sing it like a crazy person.
See,
Sometimes.
I'm not Brian. I'm not even I'm a drummer, right? And even I have,
Oh, nice.
even I get guitar ideas on my head. I'm humming them on the phone. I don't know why the fuck I'm humming them into my phone, but I still do it because I love the idea. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, of
you
course.
must be full of them. Go on,
Yeah.
carry on, carry on.
No, and then or sometimes it comes with a riff idea, or sometimes it's a percussive idea, and I'll just tap it on the steering wheel or wherever I'm at. And sometimes if I'm at a public place, you see myself going out randomly, and it's because I have an idea that I need to
Mhm.
hum in
Yep.
private. And but I would say nowadays it used to be like a 60% back in the day where I would get ideas like that.
Mhm.
But nowadays it's like I just sit down in my setup, my computer, like I just have I have to make an album or whatever, and I just tap into that realm of creativity.
Mhm.
It's weird because a lot of people have asked me, what do you do to get inspired or whatever?" And I guess I do get inspired by traveling. Some places inspire me to go in more in a different direction sometimes or whatever. But I think it's just like a creative job that you just have to sit down,
Mhm.
uh, grab a guitar, and start building from there.
Mhm.
And I don't have to I don't know, I don't allow myself to necessarily get creative to write. I just sit down and force myself to write something, and
Okay.
it flows. And one idea that I have in my head, it's a link to different all the other ideas. So and then sometimes songs came into to me like full songs. It's
Yeah.
like I know the main riff, I know the chorus, then I know exactly what I'm gonna do for the solo,
Sure.
and I structure it like that.
Nice.
And then I do like a rough mock up here, and then head to the studio and track all the instruments. So
Wow.
that's basically what I have. And then I do the click tracks and everything. But instead of conceptualizing an album or whatever, it's hard to tell you. I mean, it's hard to tell you exactly how it comes, but it's just a trance where I just tap into that realm, and it's like I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
I just need a few things. It's like I need a quiet space. I don't drink anymore, but I used to drink a lot of beer. So it's like I need beer,
Mm.
food, and be left alone. And then I would
Um,
sit there
and
forever.
what about lyrics? We discussed the lyrics. Would you write the lyrics, or do you rely on someone else to do that?
No, I do write lyrics,
Do you
and I also
pull everything?
collaborate with. Yeah, yeah, I do write the majority of it. The my session guy also has great ideas. The I don't let I'm not very good at letting people write something because they most of the times they don't understand where I'm coming from or the direction that I want to have.
Yeah.
And I like songs to be very poetic in nature and not being, I
What
don't
would you
know.
write about? What's your content if you were writing?
It's very sometimes it's very uh anti-theistic, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um and a lot of times I write from it's a very dark realm where I like to the place where it's coming from. So it's very questioning. Sometimes it's questioning God, questioning circumstances or whatever. But
Mm.
it's like in the same dark aspect of life, in a more let me say detailed way, and that's a little more eloquent
I see.
and digging into that,
I like it.
so asking questions and just questioning reality.
There's a lot. There's a lot to chew on in the States at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yeah.
hell of a lot, man. A
Yeah,
hell of a lot.
yeah,
But-
for sure.
so obviously, not to get too deep about it, because
No.
I'm not a guitarist, but I know a lot of my listeners are guitarists or are interested in guitar. What what is your setup? What do you play? Do you have a multiple, selection of weapons that you go to? What's your go-to?
I do have a lot of guitars. I have a lot of guitars. For the VHS thing, I keep it with 7 strings and 8 strings.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
For commercial stuff, I also have 6 strings, and I use 6 strings for my other projects. So with my Astonishing End or whatever. But for my thing, I have a few weapons of choice. Lucky enough to have multiple guitars of the same custom model,
Hmm.
where I can. I by the way, I keep the tuning nowadays. I used to like work around different tunings, but now I try to keep it with 2 tunings because it's easier to be playing those songs live, and I don't want to
Yeah.
be carrying multiple guitars.
Hmm.
But in studio, I do have different configurations, different pickups,
Yeah.
different string gauges, where it's like I know when an idea pops into my head, I know exactly the perfect guitar for that.
Right.
And it's a
Wow.
constant combination between like I also have like right here different pedals,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like configurations that I use. It's
Wow.
like I have this setting for a specific song that
Hmm.
I'm writing, and I have my setup dialed in. I also have a different pedal that
Cool.
will serve a purpose for this specific part or whatever. So
Yeah.
it gets very scientifically,
Yeah.
uh, and I keep a note where I take pictures and I keep
Yeah, I'm
notes.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for the album, for any production that I have, I am very meticulous with the tone that I'm going for.
So, two questions in one. How often do you
Yeah.
play a day, and what advice would you give to a guitarist who's struggling or just trying to get to a level or something like that? What would you say to them?
Um, I've been doing this professionally for a lot of years, and I don't think of myself as I'm a professional.
Mm,
Um, Even though I conduct myself professionally, but
sure.
I still have that hunger of staying humble and practicing a lot, as if I didn't know how to play guitar. So I still practice 4 to 8 hours when possible.
Right.
And I do practice a lot
Do you
to
have an
keep.
acoustic or do you plug in? How do you do it? Because obviously you can't be shredding all day long. You must have some like scale where that you might play on acoustic. I mean, how do you do it?
Well, I play classical. If I'm
Yeah,
playing
I've
an
heard
acoustic,
I've heard
I
some of your classical. It's beautiful. I've
yeah,
heard.
thank you, thank you. I do play classical. I'm very much into flamenco music too.
Love it.
So I do,
Yes.
yeah. So I do a lot of flamenco private events too on the side. So that's another thing. My grandmother's Spanish, so she's from Spain. So I grew up listening to that music
Love it.
since very early on, and you can actually see that those worlds in the VHS, especially from
Mm,
the third one forward. You can actually listen a lot of classical guitar in it. Um, but I do practice classical guitar, but I would say it's 70-30, 70% electric, 30% classical.
okay.
Because a lot of my presentations are with electric guitar.
Sure.
Um, so, but yeah, and then it's for me. I would say like for me, practicing classical guitar comes easier for some reason.
Mm,
Electric guitar, it's like where I really need to keep my chops up because it's
yeah.
like very challenging. But
Yeah.
yeah, an advice for all like aspiring full-time musicians or even
Yeah.
hobbyists.
Hobbyists. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say just don't get frustrated. Sometimes the internet can be deceiving to a
Mm,
lot of people. Um, just go to a local show, get inspired there if you're feeling uninspired. Um, and meet people in person. Try to if you need some inspiration instead of to get better at guitar or whatever. Go the old school way, and instead of trying to do lessons online, go in person. Maybe find
mm.
a local, a good guitar teacher that's hungry to teach and that would enjoy some
Nice.
one-on-one time, so you can
Nice.
actually ask questions because there's a lot of different guitar is so complicated and it has so many aspects to it that a lot of details can fall through the cracks when
Yeah,
explained through the internet.
sure.
But stay hungry, for sure. Like stay hungry. If you're aspiring to be a full-time musician, there's a lot of work to do, but don't
Yeah,
get discouraged. Don't get
sure.
discouraged.
Nice.
It's the best thing ever, and it has opened so many doors for me
Good
that
advice.
I wouldn't change anything, honestly.
So, without knowing whether this has happened or not, would you ever? You see a lot of people moving bands and guitarists in established bands leaving, and you're obviously talented enough to step into anyone's shoes. Have you ever been offered or had the chance or wanted to join an established outfit?
Yes. Uh, yeah. I actually I would love to tell you off camera.
Yeah, do.
A particular. Yeah. I okay. So I did have a great opportunity. Many, but in this particular case, perfect for my line of work. Um, but I'm not gonna mention any names
Sure.
because I'm a drama free guy. Whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
things happen. But basically, yeah, and I'm always down for the right opportunity. It's not like, but I'm staying busy with my own thing.
But right opportunity hasn't showed its face yet. Is that right?
Um,
That
I
would suit
believe,
you. That would suit you.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I believe like yeah, because it's there's people managing higher up that want to do things a certain way that would benefit them and not
Hmm.
necessarily benefit me.
I understand. Okay.
So in that aspect, it's like, okay, so my time is valuable and I'm doing this much on my own.
Hmm.
I would expect to do something more if I join forces with you.
Yeah.
But I would like to be treated like, you know, equal,
Yeah.
not like someone that doesn't know, because there's a lot of people in the industry that doesn't know how things work. But when you are in it for so long, you start understanding like how things are managed from higher up.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, but yeah, the right opportunity hasn't arrived yet.
Okay. But never say never.
That would never say never. That would actually make me leave all of my stuff behind,
Mm.
because a lot of things is like, oh, you need to stop doing what you're doing completely
Yeah.
to just do this. But it's like I can't do that because
Mm.
it's not that's not
You
suitable.
built up a long time. So,
Mm-hmm.
talk about shows. You obviously done shows. You were in Japan recently, you said, and we used it online, and we talked about that when we met in LA. But who's in the band? Do you bring session guys in to fulfill those duties?
We keep it simple. We keep it simple. You seen a drummer? That's Nick.
Yeah.
Nick's my main guy. He's been doing so many shows. And he's also the drummer for An Astonishing End. So he's full time
Who's your
member
guy? Yeah.
there. Yeah. So we've been doing a lot of shows that way. But there was never a plan of bringing in a vocalist per se to the live aspect of Violent Horror System.
Mm.
It was just like an instrumental thing, and it started that way. Never say never, but we're keeping it. It's so easy to tour that way. It's just like us two, and then the video person. So it's like we always carry media with us nowadays because we learn from our mistakes. Now we need to shoot and be having content all the time.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
but yeah, we keep it simple, and it's so easy to travel that way.
Yeah, of
So
course. Of course.
so
So what's the plans going forward? What do you have anything in the pipeline for this year?
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. So right now, like I told you off camera, we're this close of finishing a new studio. We've been quiet on the socials for this past week, and it's because of that. So if you're listening to this, that you have first dips of what's been going on. So yeah, building a new studio. It's I would say it's 80% done.
Hmm.
We moved quickly. We did it very fast.
Okay.
And it'll be up and running hopefully by next week. And after that, we're tracking two albums. And I'm tracking two albums for a different project, double album for the band for An Astonishing End, and finishing up Violent Horse System 5 at
Nice.
that studio because I already started the process. It was supposed to come out last year, but the Japan tour and a lot of other videos that we have so much content that we had to pop out that actually the album got pushed to this year. I didn't want that because I was dropping an album yearly,
Yeah.
but the calendar got way too hectic and we got to push production. So the album was 40% done, and now we're finishing the other 60% at this studio.
Cool.
So yeah, the album number 5 will be out this year, but we always use after NAM, we always take this time, January and February, which is a slower month to produce.
Yeah.
And then we go back on tour in March.
Nice.
So we start playing shows in March. So we take like 2 months off to produce and do all the albums that we're gonna make for the rest of the year, and then continue with live performances all over.
This is where it's going to get interesting for people to know where you come from. Who would be on your Mount Rushmore of guitarists and why? Four guys etched in stone who are
first on the list. I'm gonna say Paco de Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, Paco de Lucia. I would also say Aldi Meola. I have huge respect for John Petrucci, so I have to put John Petrucci in that list.
Yeah.
And for fourth place, I'm just gonna say, wow. Let me say Steve Vai.
Okay, I can see why.
Yeah, I'll say Steve Vai because he's been through a lot of phases and he's still standing. So
yeah,
that's yeah. He's been able to keep like a steady level of commitment, and like he's very true to his art. So yeah, I would say Steve Vai.
So okay, I love asking this question, especially to guitarists, because you see a different side of it. But I'm going to make this into two-phase question. One, what do you think is the heaviest riff of all time? And secondly, what is the most satisfying riff for you? Because they're probably completely two different things. It could be Hispanic style, it could be whatever. You tell me what you think.
Okay, so the first question was
the heaviest riff, the biggest riff. Stink face. What do you think? What gets you? And then the second one is something that you actually admire and wish you'd written it yourself. Something you really, it doesn't have to be heavy. It could be whatever you think.
Okay, so heavy riff from any band.
Whatever you think, whatever like is the most. Oh my god, that is the heaviest, dirtiest, stinkiest riff.
Wow. I've never been asked this question before.
Wow, that's a wow.
Okay, so yeah, okay, so I'll just say this across the board. Heaviest riff commercial so I'm gonna say heaviest riff because there's a lot of bands that do heavy riff or whatever, but those riff most of them stay on Spotify and local, within the local community. But I'm just gonna say heavy riffs that has transcended the genre and have been very commercial. I had to say Pantera, like Walk maybe, or something like that, because they were pioneers in that genre. So that's been a staple. So I'm just gonna say Pantera.
Dimebag. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Something like that. But probably the breakdown from Primal Concrete Sledge, I would say. If I'm not wrong, I think that song, it's pretty heavy. Has a pretty heavy breakdown.
Okay.
And for the
the most satisfying riff to you, you just melt when you hear it. I don't know, something that gets you. It doesn't have to be heavy. It could be pop. Could be whatever.
Wow, satisfying riff. I'm just gonna say a satisfying riff that's satisfying to me
Yeah,
for
that's
me
right.
to
This is
play.
you, man.
It's gonna be Unshadowed, honestly.
Yeah.
Unshadowed, because we opened the set with that one, and that's really satisfying for me to play live. Because the connection, I mean, some riffs, I don't listen to music too much, honestly, but the satisfaction of playing a certain riff, it comes from actually playing it. So I would say Unshadowed. I love that riff.
Awesome. So, okay, here's two questions. I'm going to bookend this interview with two of your tracks.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to start the interview with, and what am I going to end the interview with, and why?
Um, well, you can start it with "Hello, John" if you would like.
Yep. Brand new track. Yep.
Yeah. And it was made to make an impact since the beginning, so it's a good starter.
Cool.
And then if you want to end it, I would say, um, maybe "Harbingers of Shadows."
Yep. Why?
"Harbingers of Shadows." That's one of my favorite songs too.
That's good enough. So, obviously, you're in Philadelphia. Big week for Philadelphia this week. If you're a football fan, like
Yeah.
I am. I mean, I don't want this is like the worst Super Bowl for me. I'm a Chicago Bears fan, and probably for most NFL fans as well. But what's the vibe in the city at the moment?
Oh, it's quiet. I think someone got murdered like a
Oh,
few blocks from here this
what
morning.
because
There
of
was yellow
football?
tape. Yeah, no, I don't know, but I live in South Philly,
Right.
so you never know what can happen around here. But we love grungy, so it's like there's always something happening around here. And
But
I live 10 minutes away from the sports complex, so
right,
where the Eagles
yeah,
are.
fly.
Yeah, so I am very much surrounded by Eagles, true Eagles fan in the
Nice.
heart of it all.
Will you
But
will you be
yeah,
watching the game? Will you be watching it this weekend?
uh, probably, yeah, probably. We do have we're shooting some content. Tomorrow we're doing some content for the Eagles, and we might
Nice.
actually be doing something, yeah, playing around here. But it'll be like a last minute thing, like a surprise thing happening.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're not going to is it Louisiana?
It's in New Orleans. Yeah.
New Orleans, exactly. We're not going to New Orleans. We're
No.
staying in Philly and
Sure.
New York, but we're gonna be around here, and it's gonna get crazy, and we're gonna be in the middle of it. So,
Look forward to seeing all that. Now, finally, one of my last questions: where can anyone find you on socials? Where can they see you?
all right. So, we're on Instagram. You can look me up by Bryan Dilionnis, BryanDilionnis. Same thing for YouTube. Same thing for Facebook, and I believe my Facebook, you need to add the word official at the end. Uh, we're on TikTok, back on TikTok after it got
Yeah.
banned for like 24 hours. And while that ban happened, I also opened a Red Note, which is like another
Yeah.
platform.
Yeah.
On Red Note, whatever. We haven't seen any growth in that app, honestly. So I stopped using. I used it like for
Yeah.
a week, or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, aside from that, I don't use X. Honestly, I
No.
believe my posts on Instagram are linked to X,
Cool.
but I don't use X. But I'm most active on Instagram,
Sweet.
Facebook, and in YouTube, because we post
Amazing.
all the content there. So.
Of course, we're going to check him out. And finally, Bryan, what's the most used emoji in your phone?
The fire emoji, I would say.
Of course, it's a
Yeah,
classic.
if I say the fire emoji, and it's because sometimes we want to write something very detailed to our friends, but it's like, that's fire, bro.
Yeah.
I have to keep going, but that's fire. I see you. You know what
I
I'm
love
saying?
that.
So
I
yeah.
love that, man. Well, Bryan, listen, thanks for joining me on the show, mate. It's a fascinating chat. Love talking guitars with you. And we know we're going to keep in touch in the future. And good luck with everything in 2025 and beyond.
Thank you. Thank you. Of course. Thank you so much for having me.